Hey, what's up? My name's Justin, and this is 65 Drums. Today I'm trying out a new kind of video called Ask Justin or Ask 65 Drums, something clever that I'll think of, hopefully, during editing the video, where I answer a lot of emails, questions, and comments that I've gotten over the past week or so, and just do it in a video format. Okay, so let's start off with the first question from Andrew. He asks, hey Justin, I'm curious to see if you have any suggestions on acoustic kits or sizes that convert well to electronic drums. And also, what about the kit quality? Do you think it makes much of a difference if you convert like a Westbury drum set versus something like a Pearl Export? Overall, I don't really think it matters what kind of drum set that you get. Some are a little bit easier to convert than others, just to the way they're constructed. For example, this snare right here, it's got these like dome-shaped washers on the inside of the shell that make it kind of hard to put a bar trigger on the inside of it, versus something like this wood no-name shell from, what is this, Gaiman Percussion, something like that. I use that one, even though it's technically a worse snare. I don't care about sound quality. So I'll just use something that's a little bit easier to convert into an electronic snare. It doesn't really matter what kind of brand you go with. I would be careful though if you're gonna use something really, really expensive. So for example, if you've got shells on like from a DW drum set, you want to be careful because I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard that the bearing edges can be worn down over time with the mesh head. It doesn't really matter on a Pearl Export, you don't really care, but on like a $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 drum set, like a DW drum set, maybe you would try to do something to protect the bearing edges of those drums, or just go on Craigslist and buy something cheaper and use that for your like conversion drum set, and then keep your other drum set as your main acoustic drum set. Now, as far as what kind of sizes should you go for, it's really up to you. That's the great thing about converting acoustic into electronic. It doesn't matter what the color is, what the size of the drums are. It doesn't matter what kind of wood. Is it acrylic? Is it like made of metal? Is it made out of maple? None of that matters. It's all about the VST you're using or the drum module you're using. Really, anything you want can be converted into an electronic drum set. Okay, so let's move on to the next question from Hisam. He says, hey Justin, have you tried out the ATV cymbals? I want to buy a ride cymbal and I'm confused about the differences between the CY18 and the ATV 18-inch ride cymbal. Between those very two specific models, I would say the Roland one has the slight edge. They're both great ride cymbals. You got the two very best electronic ride cymbals you can possibly buy for any amount of money right there. So you're not going to be sad between either one of those. It's like saying, oh, I'm sad I bought a Ferrari instead of a Lamborghini. It's like, it doesn't matter. At that point, they're all amazing. But between those two, I feel like the Roland one does have the slight edge, because it can, you know, pick up the static electricity in your hand. You can mute it just by touching it and pinching the edge of it as well. And it's got so many sensors in it. It's got more sensors packed into that one cymbal than most other entire electronic drums. The ATV ride cymbal, it does have an advantage though, because it's got 360 triggering. So no matter which way this ride cymbal spins around, it's gonna have triggering across the entire surface. And yeah, I like them both. They're both awesome. I would say though that the one reason why I wouldn't really recommend the Roland one is that you're tied down to that one drum module. You have to buy a TD30 drum module to go along with it because it uses that USB connection. So the ATV one's just more well-rounded. You can use it with nearly anything. If you happen to have a TD50 drum module, of course, go with the Roland one because it is the better slightly just because of all the technology built into it. So the next question comes from Darren. The backstory here is that he's a college student that wants to spend around $500. He hasn't played since the 8th grade, but his end goal is to be able to record drum covers with this drum set. He's been doing a bunch of research on the used market, and his main 4 options he's trying to decide between is a Roland TD3 with the mesh snare. You can go to Guitar Center and buy their demo TD11K for about $600. You can buy a brand new Alesis Surge for about $500. And then for Guitar Center, they're selling a Roland TD4 with the mesh snare for about $450. So this is a really tough question because we don't know the exact condition of all these different drum sets, especially the floor demo units. They could have been on the floor for like 6 months, you know, people playing them at the music store, or they could have been there for 6 years. We don't really know. So you're gonna have to study these photos really, really closely and look at the condition, especially of the cymbals. Most of the time, like the rubber pads, they can just go forever. The snare pads, they can usually last a long time. The cymbals are the first to go though. So take a really close look at the cymbals. If they look damaged, if the rubber is turning all kinds of weird colors, stay away from those drums. But on the list, if I just had to guess, I would say that the Roland TD4 is the best buy. Because it's $450, it's nearly as good as the TD11, but it's quite a bit cheaper in price, and it's not a floor demo unit, it's just been used. So that's the one I would lean towards, but you'd really have to look at the condition of each one of these drum sets. Okay, so the next question comes from Stuart, and he writes, hey Justin, should I get a Joe Becky drum set or use my own set with Roland drum triggers? Also, I want to use drum software like Superior Drummer. Should I use a Roland TD30 drum module, or should I save cash and go for a Roland TM6 drum module? I have way too many options here. Okay, so let's break this down. Between the TM6 and the TD30, I would take the TD30 hands down. It's still like in the top 5 drum modules in the entire world right now. It's a solid buy, and the prices just keep going down, so it's becoming more affordable every single day on eBay to buy one of these things. Now, the reason why I wouldn't buy the TM6, even though the TM6 is a great drum module, I actually got a chance to play it, I've gotten a chance to see it multiple times, it's not really meant for entire drum sets. So looking at the specs really quickly, it's only got 6 dual zone trigger inputs. Now you can split that to be 12 single zone triggers, but it's only got 6 trigger inputs. It's not made for an entire electronic drum set. This is made so that you can add like a Roland trigger bar to the side of your acoustic drum set, maybe put like a Roland RT30 trigger on your snare, on your kick drum, on a floor tom. You're basically using this to layer sounds on top of your existing acoustic drum set, not take over and become your drum set. You can also tell that it's meant to be a hybrid drum module because of how many sounds they put inside the module. It's got 500 one-shot samples, so that means you got one sound no matter how hard you hit it. And then it's got 268 like multi-velocity samples. So that means you'll have different sounds when you play softly and when you play loudly. So this is made more for layering sounds. So it's a great drum module for what it's trying to be, but in your situation, if you're thinking about buying like a Joe Becky drum set, go with the Roland TD30 drum module if you can afford it. And of course, that brings us to the second question. Should you go with a Joe Becky drum set or your acoustic set with like Roland RT30 triggers on top? In my opinion, I would go with the Joe Becky drum set if you're just looking for triggered drum shells because it's really not that expensive, and I prefer like having internal triggers. So yeah, I would go with the Joe Becky drum set. It's less hassle and you get the internal triggers. The Roland RT30s are great though. I just don't prefer them as much, even though I do have one. I actually bought one with my own money. I prefer the Joe Becky internal ones. Okay, so the next question comes from Buddy, and he writes, "Hey Justin, do you have any experience with the Ddrum Hybrid drum sets?" So this is the drum set he's asking about right here. It costs about $700. You get 6 different shells, and they all have electronic triggers inside of them. They're basically there to be used with like a TM6 drum module. You're layering a clap sound on top of your snare, or you're like adding like a booming kick drum electronic sound to your kick drum. So this set right here, that's what it's really made for. It's made to enhance your acoustic sound, not really take over and become an electronic drum set. I actually held one of the snares at a store once, and this is a picture of the internal trigger. It's dead simple, it's single zone, and it really can't compete with like a trigger inside of a Roland, a Yamaha, or even an Alesis drum set. So I'm not trying to knock this drum set. It's a really cool idea, and if they ever start putting in really nice drum triggers into these things, I would be more interested. But right now, it's a very simple design. Okay, so that's it for the questions, but now it's time to move on to the drum cover of the week. This week, it's Beats by Jay. He did a great drum cover of Gone Away by Five Finger Death Punch. Jay's been making a ton of great drum covers for years now, and he recently moved into a different studio. I love the new look. If you want to go check out his channel, I'll link it down in the description below. By the way, if you like this kind of video and you want me to do it on like a weekly basis, let me know down in the comments below. And if you think the whole concept is dumb, again, let me know down in the comments below. Have an amazing day, everybody, and I'll see you in a few.